I have so many questions now that I will have to ask you after. I guess let's kind of like pick up where we sort of left off, which where we're talking about attackers and defenders. The attackers using any tool that just releases defenders have to go through a bunch of loopholes, and the protection of what someone mentioned was as crown jewels, and defining what those crown jewels are, because ultimately you cannot protect everything equally. So you have to pick your battles. I believe that's where we kind of left off.
Yeah, so I actually had some time to think about it, and I want to bring up something that I usually talk about. I mean, I've had the privilege with speaking with a lot of CISOs in the past few months, and we were talking about this whole revolution with AI tools and all of that. We were talking about this specific metaphor of you having a house, and in your house you have your most beloved things that you keep. It can be money, it can be passports, it can be specific artifacts, and you have your external parts of the house where you put the most advanced technology, usually to try to keep it. You have cameras, sometimes you have alarm systems, and each year they're probably going to be new and improved technology. Those things that you want to keep are still need the same amount of protection, from the inside. And if you try to protect all of the external entry points to your house, one, you will surely miss some. You never get 100% in security. And for me, as an incident response leader, and a lot of time I had to lead penetration testing projects, you always tell the customer that, or the organization that you're working with, that you can never get 100%. You can aspire to do your best, but there's never 100%. And two, once the intruder, it can be an attacker or intruder in the metaphor of the house, you're blind to what it can do and how it can actually hurt the organization or your house. So the point is that if you're able to conclude what can actually break the organization, identify all the possible paths to it, and you're able to know exactly what to fix in order to break this path, you are able to protect yourself, number one, easier, number two, quicker, and number three, cheaper. It's like when you play soccer, football, depending on where you're from and how you call it. When you have the opposing team, they have a free kick, and you're staring at the wall. You're building the wall, and you do try to protect your entire body at once. No, right? You see football, you're going to get ahead eventually, so you're trying to protect the most valuable part. If it gets hit, you're in trouble. My point is that AI technology is taking over. It's creating more and more attack surfaces and making attacks quicker and affordable. And the rational thing people do in the past year or so is to panic. I see a lot of CISOs that I've been talking with. Everybody's like, how am I protecting this new attack surface of the AI that's get created? There's a new tool, there's a new technology, there's a new model, there's people are starting to integrate so much AI technology into my organization. How am I protecting it? And instead of panicking and trying to protect each corner, which is physically impossible, this is just my perspective. I'm not trying to preach to anyone, but CISOs need to take a deep look into their infrastructure. Whether it's cloud-based, on-prem, AI-centric, they need to identify the components that will take the company down if they get hit. It can be assets, it can be information, it can be processes, it can be identities. Afterwards, they need to be able to explain how an attacker would realistically get there. It can be by exploiting one of the external entry points. It can be prompt ejection that leads to credentials. It can be a vulnerable cloud assets or an exposed server, etc. Then it can move laterally, taking advantage of more internal weaknesses until it gets to that defined crown jewel. It can be IP, information, whatever. Once you are able to confidently say that you eliminated all possible paths to the information that you care about most, that you identified in your company, each company is going to have a different approach to it, then you already put the organization in a place which an attack would have a really hard time trying to impact, eventually making it not worth their while.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be like, go ahead.
Well, you've started, so you go ahead.
Okay. No, I was going to just kind of just reframe a little bit just to make sure we're on the same page. So you're saying we need to just take a look, or organizations and CISOs need to take a look at, like, would you say it's just like the worst case scenarios, right? So like when we're talking about these crown jewels, just to kind of define it for people, is like how they should think about it. Is it like identifying a system or a data set or some event that would be like the most catastrophic, and kind of start from there and then figure out, okay, well, how would this catastrophic event unfold? What data or systems does it involve? And like secure that first before going and doing it across the whole company for everything. Is that the idea?
Yeah, some of it. Each organization is going to have a different crown jewel. Speaking in very vague and general terms, but each organization is going to have it different. For a financial institution, it's probably going to be financial information. For a product-led organization, maybe the product and the platform that they're developing is going to be their crown jewel. For a legal firm, it's going to be legal information and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what I'm saying basically is what you said is that each organization needs to understand, if you get hit tomorrow, if you get attacked tomorrow, obviously the attacker's goal would be divided into three. One is going to want to disrupt you. So it's trying to maybe DDoS attack you. And this is something that is entirely different, and you protect that in a different approach. But if it doesn't try to disrupt you, it's trying to probably get to something that will actually hurt. And that's where the CISO needs to understand, what can hurt me? What can hurt me? What can hurt the organization? And needs to classify it. There's a term when you need to go through compliance that you have to have a data retention and classification policy. And usually a lot of companies just do it for the sake of passing compliance, which is okay. I've done it myself, but it's where you actually define the information that is important for the company, and how you respond to if it gets damaged or taken or whatever. So once you are able to actually identify it, this is not an easy work, honestly. We're talking about that as if it's something that it's very easy to achieve, but it's not, especially if you're a large organization. But if you are able to identify it, and you are able to identify all the possible paths an attacker can take to actually get there, you already put your organization in, I don't know how many times better than you were before. And what I was trying to say earlier, that it's the focus, is what matters. We have such a large attack surface these days, and CISOs don't always necessarily have either the budget to try to protect everything, the time and resources. Not every large organization is going to have 100 people on their security stack or security teams. Sometimes it's going to be 5 or 6 people. Sometimes it's going to be one IT guy. So the goal here is to focus. And as much as your attack surface is going to grow in the future, in the next few years, more tools, more technologies are going to keep popping up. But one thing is not going to change, is what the organization stands upon, which is the basics, which the actual crown jewels that if they get hurt, then the company's in trouble.